The massive space station floated silently above the war-torn planet below. Dr. Emma Brooks pressed her face against the small window of the transport shuttle, watching the medical facility grow larger as they approached. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat faster with each passing minute. "First time working with aliens?" asked Dr. James Mitchell, the older man sitting across from her. His gray hair and tired eyes spoke of many years serving in space. Emma nodded. 3 years since Earth joined the Alliance, and this is my first real assignment with their medical teams. James smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The Zephyrians running this place have been doing battlefield medicine for over 200 years. They're good at what they do, but they don't like change. And humans? Well, we're definitely a change. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and Emma gathered her medical kit. She had trained for this moment since the day Earth was accepted into the Galactic Alliance. The war against the hegemony forces had been going on for months, and they needed all the help they could get. The docking bay was huge, filled with medical equipment Emma didn't recognize and beings she had only seen in training videos. The air smelled different, cleaner somehow, but with an odd metallic taste that made her wrinkle her nose. A tall figure approached them, moving on 4 legs with 4 arms swinging gracefully at its sides. Its skin was covered in small silver scales that caught the light, and its large compound eyes seemed to take in everything at once. "Dr. Brooks," the alien said, its voice coming through a small device attached to its throat. The translator made its clicks and whistles sound like perfect English. "I am Commander Velterra. I have read your files." Emma straightened up. "Commander, thank you for having us here. Your credentials are adequate for such a young species," Velterra continued, tilting her head in a way that seemed dismissive. "However, you must understand that battlefield medicine requires exact procedures. Lives depend on following the correct protocols. There is no room for the improvisation your species is known for." Before Emma could respond, loud alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the busy docking bay became a scene of controlled chaos as medical teams rushed to their positions. "Incoming casualties," announced a mechanical voice over the speakers. 300 wounded from the Arcturus battle. Multiple species. All severity levels. Emma watched as Commander Velterra's confident posture suddenly changed. The alien's 4 arms began moving nervously, and her compound eyes darted around the bay. 300. Velterra whispered, more to herself than to the humans. "We have never handled so many at once. And multiple species means different medical requirements, different protocols." Dr. Mitchell stepped forward. "Commander, where do you need us?" Velterra looked at him as if remembering they were there. "Bay 7. Follow the blue lights. Try not to interfere with established procedures." Emma and James hurried through the corridors, following the flashing blue lights. The station was enormous, with curved walls and ceilings that made Emma feel like she was inside a giant tube. Alien medical staff rushed past them, carrying equipment and shouting orders in languages the translators couldn't keep up with. Bay 7 was already filling with wounded when they arrived. Emma had seen battlefield injuries before during her military service, but never like this. Beings she couldn't even name were lying on medical tables, their strange anatomies damaged in ways that made no sense to human eyes. A Zephyrian medic stood frozen next to one table, staring at a creature that looked like it was made of living crystal. The being's transparent body was cracked and dim, like a broken window. "The silicon matrix is completely shattered," the alien medic said to no one in particular. "Central processing core damaged beyond repair. This entity is already dead." Emma approached the table and pulled out her medical scanner. The device beeped as it tried to make sense of the readings. "Not necessarily dead. Just different." The Zephyrian medic looked at her with surprise. "Different? The protocols clearly state that silicon-based life forms with core damage cannot be saved." "Maybe your protocols are wrong," Emma said quietly, studying the scanner readings. The crystal being was unlike anything she had ever seen, but the basic principles were still there. Energy flowing through pathways, systems trying to maintain balance, a body fighting to survive. Around them, the bay filled with more casualties. Beings with scales, fur, metal plating, and stranger things Emma couldn't identify. Each one was different, each one needed different treatment, and the alien medical staff was struggling to keep up. She watched as a spider-like doctor stood helplessly next to a patient that seemed to be made of gas held together by some kind of energy field. In another corner, a Zephyrian medic was frantically checking databases, trying to find protocols for a creature that breathed methane instead of oxygen. "They're overwhelmed," Emma realized. "They've never had to deal with this many different species at once." Dr. Mitchell appeared beside her, his own scanner in hand. Each species has its own medical requirements, its own anatomy, its own way of healing. The aliens have protocols for each one separately, but when they're all mixed together, they don't know how to adapt, Emma finished. She looked around the bay at the chaos, at the alien medics standing frozen by procedures that didn't account for the reality in front of them. The crystal being on her table flickered weakly, its light growing dimmer. Whatever it was, wherever it came from, it was dying. And according to the established protocols, there was nothing anyone could do about it. Emma made a decision that would change everything. She rolled up her sleeves and reached for her surgical tools. Let's show them how humans do medicine. Emma's hands moved quickly over the crystal being's shattered body. The Zephyrian medic watched in horror as she ignored every safety protocol and began working on anatomy that wasn't supposed to exist. You cannot operate without proper procedures, the alien medic chittered nervously. The databases have no information about repairing silicon-based life forms. Then we make it up as we go, Emma replied, her scanner beeping constantly as she studied the strange patterns of light flowing through the crystal creature's body. Dr. Mitchell, I need you over here. James appeared at her side, already pulling on surgical gloves. What are we looking at? Silicon-based life form, but it's not just rock, Emma explained quickly. See these light patterns? They're like neural pathways but made of energy instead of electricity. The damage broke the main connections, but the smaller ones are still working. The crystal being flickered again, its light growing weaker. It's like a computer with a broken motherboard, James said, understanding immediately. We need to create new pathways around the damage. Emma nodded and reached for a tool she had never used on living crystal before. Exactly. If we can bridge the gaps. She began working with steady hands, using a microlaser to carefully etch new pathways in the being's crystal structure. It was delicate work, like performing surgery on a living diamond. One wrong move and she could shatter the entire body. The Zephyrian medic backed away in shock. This is impossible. You are operating on a life form you have never seen before, using techniques that do not exist. Welcome to human medicine, Emma muttered, concentrating on her work. Across the bay, Dr. Lisa Parker was facing her own impossible case. A methane-breathing creature from the outer planets was dying because its blood had been contaminated with oxygen during the battle. The alien medics had no way to clean methane-based blood. I need a chemical synthesis unit, Lisa called out. For what? Asked a confused Zephyrian nurse. To make artificial blood, Lisa replied as if it was the most normal thing in the world. If we can't clean the contaminated blood, we replace it. She began mixing compounds that had never been combined before, using her knowledge of chemistry to create something that might work. The methane breather's body was shutting down, but Lisa refused to give up. This is madness, whispered the alien nurse. You are creating new medical procedures in the middle of surgery. That's what we do, Lisa said, injecting her homemade blood substitute into the creature's veins. We solve problems. Meanwhile, Dr. Marcus Webb had taken on something even more challenging. 3 patients at once, a human soldier, a gas-based entity that looked like a floating cloud, and a reptilian saurid with multiple hearts. You cannot treat 3 different species simultaneously, protested a spider-like arachnoid doctor. Each requires different techniques, different tools, different knowledge. Marcus looked up from the human soldier's chest wound. So I use different techniques. Watch and learn. He moved between the 3 patients like a dancer, switching tools and methods with each step. Treating the human's gunshot wound, then using sound waves to repair damage in the gas being's energy matrix, then switching to reptilian anatomy to restart one of the saurid's hearts. How do you know how to treat a saurid heart? The arachnoid asked in amazement. I don't, Marcus admitted, his hands working quickly. But I know how hearts work in general. This one just happens to be cold-blooded and there are 3 of them instead of 1. The alien doctors throughout the bay had stopped their own work to watch the humans. Emma's crystal patient was beginning to glow brighter as her improvised pathways started working. Lisa's methane breather was breathing normally again, its new artificial blood flowing smoothly through its veins. Marcus's 3 patients were all stabilizing simultaneously. This is not possible, Commander Velterra said, appearing beside Emma's table. Your techniques violate every medical principle we know. Emma looked up from her patient, sweat beading on her forehead. The crystal being's light was growing stronger, and what looked like gratitude was flowing through its energy patterns. Maybe your principles are wrong, she said simply. This patient is alive when your protocol said it was dead. That methane breather over there is breathing when your databases said it couldn't be saved. Those 3 patients are all going to live when your procedures said we had to choose which one to help. Velterra's forearms trembled slightly. But how? How are you doing this without proper training, without established procedures? Dr. Mitchell appeared, having just saved a creature that looked like a walking plant. Because we don't treat procedures, Commander. We treat patients. He gestured around the bay, where human doctors were performing miracles on beings they had never seen before. Every living thing has the same basic needs: energy, structure, waste processing, healing. The details change, but the principles stay the same. But the precision, Velterra insisted. The safety protocols. Without exact procedures, how do you maintain accuracy? Emma finished her work on the crystal being and watched as it sat up on the table, its entire body now glowing with healthy light. The being's first words, transmitted through harmonic vibrations, were clearly expressing gratitude. The most precise procedure in the galaxy is worthless if the patient dies while you're looking it up, Emma said. We stay accurate by paying attention to what's actually happening, not what a computer tells us should be happening. Around them, the bay was transforming from chaos into organized efficiency. Human doctors worked alongside increasingly confident alien medics, showing them how to think beyond their programming. The first rule of human medicine, Dr. Parker called out from her station, is that there's always something you can try. Always. Commander Velterra stared at the transformed medical bay, watching impossible saves happen all around her. For the first time in 2 centuries of medical practice, she began to question everything she thought she knew about healing. The next morning brought a temporary quiet to the medical station. The wounded had been treated, and for the first time in days the emergency alarms were silent. Emma sat in the small cafeteria, drinking something that tasted almost like coffee, when Commander Velterra approached her table. Dr. Brooks, the Zephyrian said, her forearms moving nervously. I have been thinking about yesterday. What you did, it should not have been possible. Emma looked up from her drink. But it worked. Yes, Velterra admitted. That is what troubles me. I have been a medic for over 100 years. I have followed every protocol, studied every procedure, memorized treatments for 43 different species. Yet you saved beings I would have declared dead. Other alien medics began gathering around the table. Dr. Quintoas, the spider-like arachnoid, clicked his mandibles nervously. We request an explanation. How do humans perform medicine without proper databases? Emma sighed. She had been expecting this conversation. Would you like me to show you? An hour later, the medical bay's conference room was packed with alien doctors from 6 different species. Emma stood at the front with a holographic display, feeling like she was back in medical school giving a presentation. Let me ask you a question, she began. What do you do when you encounter a patient from a species you have never treated before? Dr. Quintoas raised one of his 8 legs. We consult the medical databases for that species. And if the databases have no information? Uncomfortable silence filled the room. We wait for more data, said a fish-like Aquarian doctor. While the patient dies, Emma said bluntly. That is the difference between our approaches. She activated the holographic display, showing recordings from the previous day's surgeries. When I operated on that crystal being, I had never seen anything like it. But I did not need to know its specific anatomy to understand the basic principles. The hologram showed Emma's hands working on the transparent creature. Every living thing needs to transport energy from one part of its body to another. In humans we use blood vessels. In this being they use light pathways. The method is different, but the principle is the same. Commander Velterra leaned forward. But without exact procedures, how do you ensure safety? Dr. Mitchell stepped beside Emma. By understanding what we are trying to accomplish instead of memorizing steps. Let me show you something. He brought up a new hologram showing human medical students in training. Our doctors practice on dozens of different species during their education. Not to memorize procedures but to learn how to think. The alien doctors watched as human students worked on simulated patients from various worlds. Each case was different, each solution required creative thinking. We teach our doctors to ask questions, Mitchell continued. What is this organ trying to do? How does energy flow through this body? What happens when this system fails? Once you understand the answers, the treatment becomes obvious. Dr. Lisa Parker joined them at the front. Yesterday, I had to create artificial blood for a methane breather. I had never done that before and there was no procedure for it. But I knew the blood's job was to carry nutrients and remove waste. So I made something that could do those jobs in a methane-based system. But the risk, protested the Aquarian doctor. What if you had been wrong? Then the patient would have died, Lisa said simply. Just like they were going to die if I did nothing. When someone is dying, trying something new is not risky, it is the only logical choice. Emma pulled up another recording, this one showing Marcus treating 3 patients simultaneously. Dr. Webb saved 3 beings at once because he understood that medical emergencies are not about following a checklist. They are about solving problems as quickly as possible. The alien medics watched in fascination as Marcus moved between his patients, adapting his techniques for each one. The human soldier needed standard trauma surgery, Emma explained. The gas being needed energy field manipulation. The Saurid needed cardiovascular support. 3 completely different procedures, but Dr. Webb could do them because he understood the underlying principles of each. Velterra's compound eyes reflected the holographic light. You treat the problem, not the species. Exactly, Emma said. A damaged organ is a damaged organ whether it is made of muscle, crystal, or energy. A failing circulatory system needs the same basic support, whether it pumps blood, methane, or liquid nitrogen. Dr. Quintios raised another leg. But what about precision? Our procedures ensure exact measurements, correct dosages, proper timing. Emma smiled. Precision comes from understanding, not memorization. When you understand why something works, you can adapt it to any situation. When you only know the steps, you are helpless when the situation changes. She brought up a final hologram showing the crystal being sitting up on its table, fully healed. Our patient lived because we focused on the goal, repairing damaged energy pathways, instead of following non-existent procedures. The room fell quiet as the alien doctors considered what they had learned. Finally, a young Zephyrian medic spoke up. Could you teach us? These methods, this way of thinking. Emma looked around the room at the eager faces of beings from across the galaxy, all united by the desire to save lives. That, she said, is exactly what we are here for. Dr. Mitchell activated the room's communication system. Alliance Medical Command, this is Dr. Mitchell on Mercy's Edge. We need to set up extended training protocols. I think we are about to change how medicine works in this galaxy. As the alien doctors began asking questions about human medical philosophy, Emma realized they had crossed a threshold. They were not just treating patients anymore, they were teaching the galaxy that sometimes the best medicine came not from following rules, but from refusing to accept that any life was beyond saving. The alarm that woke Emma at 3 in the morning was different from the usual battle casualty alerts. This one was urgent and confused, filled with static and uncertainty. All medical teams to Emergency Bay 1, the station's AI announced. We have unknown biological entities incoming. Repeat, unknown entities. No database matches found. Emma rolled out of bed and grabbed her medical kit. In the corridor, she met Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Parker, both looking as confused as she felt. Unknown entities? Lisa asked, pulling her hair back as they hurried toward the emergency bay. Deep Space Patrol found a derelict ship, Mitchell explained, checking his communicator. 12 survivors from a species that isn't in any Alliance records. No one has ever seen anything like them before. They arrived at Emergency Bay 1 to find it in chaos. Commander Velterra stood in the center of the room, her 4 arms moving frantically as she tried to coordinate her confused medical staff. The first transport is arriving now, Velterra announced. Preliminary scans show silicon-carbon hybrid physiology with unprecedented complexity. We have no protocols, no procedures, no database entries. Emma watched through the bay windows as the medical transport docked. Through the transparent walls, she could see shapes moving inside, beings unlike anything she had ever imagined. The doors opened and the first patient was wheeled in. Emma stopped breathing for a moment. The creature was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its translucent skin revealed a complex internal structure of flowing liquids and pulsing lights. Multiple heart-like organs beat in different rhythms throughout its body, while crystalline nodes embedded in its flesh glowed with soft blue light. "What are we looking at?" whispered Dr. Quintus, the arachnoid doctor. "Something completely new," Emma replied, approaching the patient with her scanner. The device beeped frantically, trying to make sense of readings it had never encountered. The alien medical staff stood frozen around the room. Even Commander Velterra seemed paralyzed by the impossibility of treating a patient with no known physiology. "We cannot proceed without proper protocols," Velterra said, her voice shaking. "We have no data on their anatomy, their blood chemistry, their nervous system. We could kill them by accident." Emma looked at the scanner readings. The being's vital signs were failing rapidly. Whatever had damaged their ship had caused massive internal trauma, and they were dying while the alien medics stood around debating procedures. Then we figure it out, Emma said, pulling on her surgical gloves. Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Parker, standard xenobiology assessment. We start with what we know and work from there. Emma, Lisa protested, we have no idea what we're dealing with. These beings could have completely different biology than anything we've seen. So we learn, Emma replied, moving her scanner over the patient's body. Look at this, bilateral symmetry suggests Earth-like evolutionary pressures. Multiple circulatory systems could mean redundancy or specialized functions. Those crystalline structures look neural to me. Dr. Mitchell joined her, his own scanner active. I'm reading massive internal damage to several organ systems. But which ones are critical? We could waste time treating the wrong injuries. The being's vital signs dropped further. Whatever those glowing nodes were, they were flickering weakly. Emma made a decision that would have horrified any protocol-following medic. We treat everything as critical. If we're wrong, we can adjust. If we do nothing, they die right now. She began working, her hands steady despite the completely alien anatomy. Lisa, monitor those crystalline nodes. If they're neural, we need to keep them stable. Marcus, start with what looks like circulatory damage. Emma, Velterra called out desperately, you are operating on a being whose physiology you know nothing about. This violates every medical principle. The only principle that matters is keeping them alive, Emma replied, carefully working around organs she couldn't identify. We can debate proper procedures later. As they worked, patterns began to emerge. The being had 3 separate circulatory systems, one for nutrition, one for waste processing, and one for something that looked like electrical energy. The crystalline nodes were indeed neural, but they formed a distributed network rather than a central brain. It's like they evolved from both organic and mineral life, Lisa observed, monitoring the neural activity. Part biological, part living computer. Which explains the complexity, Mitchell added, working to repair what appeared to be a damaged energy distribution system. Multiple redundant systems, but all interconnected. Hours passed. Emma's hands grew tired, but she didn't stop. Around the room, alien medics watched in amazement as the human team invented new medical procedures in real time. You are creating entirely new surgical techniques, whispered Dr. Quintios. How do you know what to do? We don't, Emma admitted, carefully repairing a crystalline pathway. We're making educated guesses based on what we can observe. The being needs energy to flow through its body, so we fix the pathways. It needs its systems to communicate, so we repair the connections. Slowly, the being's vital signs began to stabilize. The crystalline nodes grew brighter, and the multiple hearts found synchronized rhythms. What had seemed like impossible alien anatomy began to make sense as a complex but logical biological system. As dawn broke over the station, the unknown being opened what Emma assumed were its eyes, multiple optical sensors that glowed with soft intelligence. Through a hastily programmed translation interface, its first message was simple but profound. Gratitude. Life debt acknowledged. You have given us continued existence. Commander Velterra approached Emma, her forearms trembling with something between awe and fear. You saved a being whose physiology no one in the galaxy has ever seen. You operated without any knowledge of their anatomy, their biology, their medical needs. Emma looked at the recovering patient, exhaustion clear in her voice but satisfaction in her eyes. Because that's what doctors do, Commander. We don't save database entries. We don't treat protocols. We save lives no matter what form they take. The first of the unknown species was stable, but 11 more waited in the transport ship. 6 months later, Emma stood in the Grand Assembly Hall on Haven Prime, the neutral world where the Galactic Alliance held its most important meetings. The massive crystal dome above her head showed the stars beyond, and representatives from dozens of species filled the curved seating areas around her. She felt small and nervous in her formal dress uniform, very aware that she was probably the youngest person ever to address the full medical council. Dr. Emma Brooks, announced Chancellor Mordun, an ancient being whose species had helped found the Alliance medical system thousands of years ago. His voice echoed through the hall with the weight of ages. Your actions at Mercy's Edge have caused us to question everything we thought we knew about medicine. Emma's heart beat faster. She had expected some kind of recognition, maybe a medal or certificate. She had not expected to be called before the highest medical authority in the galaxy. The beings you saved, the Chancellor continued, were the Nexari. We have been trying to contact their civilization for over 50 years. They are one of the most advanced species in this part of the galaxy, but they refused all communication with us. A holographic display showed the crystal beings Emma had treated, now fully healed and standing in what looked like an advanced medical facility. Your medical intervention not only saved 12 lives, but opened diplomatic relations with the people who can teach us technologies we have never imagined, Chancellor Mordun said. The Nexari were so impressed by human medical capabilities that they have agreed to share their knowledge with the Alliance. Emma glanced at Dr. Mitchell, who sat in the front row wearing the new insignia of Alliance Medical Command. He gave her an encouraging nod. Furthermore, the Chancellor's voice grew stronger. We have reviewed medical reports from all Alliance facilities where human techniques have been implemented. Success rates have improved by an average of 37%. Patient survival in previously hopeless cases has increased by over 60%. The holographic display changed to show medical bays across the galaxy. Emma watched in amazement as alien doctors worked alongside human medics, using the adaptive techniques they had taught them. These results force us to acknowledge a difficult truth, Chancellor Mordun continued. Our medical system, built on rigid protocols and species-specific procedures, has been failing patients who could have been saved. Murmurs spread through the assembly as representatives of various species discussed this revelation in their own languages. Therefore, the Chancellor announced, the Medical Council has voted unanimously to establish a new institution. The Interspecies Medical Academy will be built on Luna Prime, orbiting the human homeworld. Its mission will be to teach adaptive medicine to doctors from across the galaxy. Emma's breath caught in her throat. A new medical academy was huge, the kind of thing that happened maybe once every few centuries. Dr. Brooks, Chancellor Mordun's ancient eyes focused on her, would you accept the position of founding director of this academy? The hall fell silent. Emma could hear her own heartbeat in the quiet. Every representative, every dignitary, every medical official in the galaxy was waiting for her answer. She thought about the crystal being on the medical table, dying while alien doctors stood frozen by their protocols. She thought about Commander Velterra learning to think beyond her procedures. She thought about all the patients across the galaxy who might live because someone was willing to try something new. I accept, she said simply. The hall erupted in sounds that her translator could not quite capture, approval expressed in dozens of different ways by dozens of different species. 2 years later, Emma stood on the observation deck of the Interspecies Medical Academy, watching Earth slowly rotate below them. The facility was enormous, with medical bays designed for every known form of life and some that had not been discovered yet. Director Brooks, called a familiar voice behind her. Emma turned to see Commander Velterra approaching, but the Zephyrian looked different now. She wore the white coat of a certified Xenomedic and moved with the confidence of someone who had learned to think beyond rigid rules. Dr. Velterra, Emma corrected with a smile. How are the new students? Eager to learn, Velterra replied, her compound eyes bright with enthusiasm. We have 200 graduates in this class, representing 43 different species. They have all completed the Human Adaptive Medicine program. Through the observation windows, Emma could see the graduation ceremony being prepared in the main auditorium. Beings she had never seen before worked alongside familiar species, all wearing the simple gray robes of graduating medical students. I have been chosen to give the graduation address, Velterra continued. I wanted to thank you first for showing me that medicine is about more than following procedures. Emma watched as Dr. Parker led a group of crystalline students through a practical exercise, teaching them to adapt their techniques for species they had never encountered. Nearby, Dr. Mitchell demonstrated emergency surgery to a class of reptilian medics. What will you tell them? Emma asked. Velterra looked out at the students preparing for their graduation. That the most important lesson human medicine has taught us is this: every life is worth saving, no matter how alien it seems. The most advanced medical technology in the galaxy is worthless without the determination to never give up on a patient. The graduation ceremony began an hour later. Emma sat on the stage watching as 200 new doctors received their certifications in adaptive xenomedicine. They would return to medical posts across the galaxy, carrying with them the human philosophy that had transformed Alliance medicine. As the ceremony concluded, the Academy's new motto was displayed on the walls in 47 different languages. Emma had written it herself, based on what she had learned during those desperate hours in the medical bay. Life finds a way and doctors find life. The graduates dispersed to transport ships that would carry them to hospitals, battle zones and research stations throughout known space. Each one carried the knowledge that no case was truly hopeless, no patient beyond help, no medical challenge impossible to overcome. Emma smiled as she watched them go, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy tonight, an alien doctor would face an impossible case and remember the most important lesson human medicine had to offer. There was always something more you could try.